But let's talk about the state of this country.
Yeah.
We got the story from Timcast.com. RNC sues 2 Vermont towns for allowing non-citizens to vote. The governor's veto of the measure was overruled by the state's legislature. They say Montpelier and Winooski recently altered their charters so non-citizens who immigrated legally could vote in municipal elections. How's that for you have no country?
That's like the opposite direction of where I want to go. I want you to have live there for 4 years before you can start voting there. Something
wait. At least could you be a citizen first?
Yeah,
how about that?
You got to be a citizen and have some residence in the area where you're voting.
Wait, can you please say that to me one more time? Did you just tell me that there are jurisdictions in the United States where it is now legal to vote if you're not a citizen?
Yes, there are many actually. There's a lot of them. I think Sacramento's got a couple. San Francisco's got a couple. Those are municipal elections. So there's like school board and stuff like that. Yeah. Look. The left will come out and be like, it used to be in this country you had to be a landowner to vote. Those bigots, and it's like,
that's a good system.
Let's just break this down real quick. You're in the middle of the woods. There's a bunch of people walking around, and you're like, all right, we're gonna have a vote on what to do about that tree that fell down. And then a bunch of people walk up, and they're like, I'd like to vote. Do you live here? Yes. Where do you live? Okay, look. Only the people who live here get to vote. Oh, that's racist. You're bigoted. It's like, the reason they did it, that they had that system, was because if you lived there, you voted.
But now you see, like, Matt Walsh has poked a big hole in that. Did you see he wanted to go speak at I think it was Loudoun County, and then they wouldn't let him because he wasn't a resident. So he rented property, and he's like, now I'm a resident. But it's like, okay, he's showing that you really should have to live there for like 4 years, a long period of time.
I've actually looked into this a few times. Now, I want to have more clarification. I'm going to tell one story real quick. We've been looking at jurisdictions to buy land, maybe jurisdictions with not a lot of people in them that have sheriff's offices and school boards and stuff. So maybe we move enough people there, we take over a sheriff's office, right? How cool would that be? So a lot of these jurisdictions, they own the requirement for voting is that you have moved there with the intention of remaining. That's it. Now, you're telling me that these could be non-U.S. citizens?
Yes.
Just foreigners that showed up, came to the meeting and said, I'm here now, I would like to vote.
Yes.
Are they renting property? Is that...
The Montpelier bill allows what is defined as a legal resident of the United States to be able to vote in city elections. If someone is here on a permanent basis, why would he or she not want to participate in the process to become a citizen?
Okay, so they have to have a green card, I guess?
It says legal immigrants, yes.
I see.
It doesn't matter as far as I'm concerned.
Right, they're still not U.S. citizens.
You have to be a U.S. citizen, yes, exactly.
Yeah,
but you don't. The idea that you shouldn't have... No, I know.
It's really, really simple. They are... you know what? I got a friend... argue all the time because he was just all on board for Biden. He goes on Twitter, he goes on Facebook, he's screaming, Trump is bad, we gotta vote for Biden. And then guess what he did a couple months after the election ended? He moved to Europe. That is the problem. When people are like, everyone please vote for this thing. And then as soon as it happens, they're like, later suckers. Wow. Now we're watching this free fall. Economic crisis, labor shortages, gas prices, inflation, the border, Afghanistan, and the people who vote for it, at least this one guy is like, I'm out. Later, bitches.
Yeah.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
I kind of get the idea of a locality maintaining its autonomy. And if they want to let foreign citizens vote in locale, then do it. Who's to say you can't, But so maybe it should be on a pace. But I can imagine someone getting in there and co-opting it and being like, yes, now we can all.
Yes.
People are like, no.
Yeah.
Well, pretty soon.
Here's the issue, Ian. You've got 10 people who live in a house, and they want to vote for what's for lunch. They all pitch in every day. They put $1 in the lunch bucket, and so they're like, okay, it's lunchtime. We got $10. What should we buy from? And then someone says, well, why don't we let Jim? He's our neighbor. He doesn't live here, but he could
Jimmy
vote too. Jimmy Mac. So what happens is Jimmy Mac then says, I would like to vote that we allow my brother to vote as well, and so let's put it to a vote. When you allow someone from outside to vote on very specific internal issues, they will, of course, vote for their own interest. So when you say non-citizens can vote, they'll be like, I would like to vote in this election. Yes, I'd like to vote yes on allowing more people who aren't citizens to vote. Why wouldn't they? People are going to vote for what they think is best for them.
It's kind of like
community.
In that metaphor to be like a house of 10 people, and then like another guy moves in, an 11th person who his name's not on the lease, but you give him voting power.
He doesn't even move in. It's the delivery guy who drops off lunch. He's at the door, and everyone's like, well, we have to vote. Oh, we have to include him now. We have 11 people voting.
But this is people with green cards that live there in the community.
All right,
but if someone's not a citizen, there's less of a guarantee that they're in it for the long run.
There's less of a guarantee that they're going to be a citizen. Let's try again. There's 10 people in a big house. And then, Jimmy Mack is sleeping on the couch. Temporary.
No, he's not on the lease, yeah.
He's not on the lease. We don't know what his plan is. He's just crashing here. Half the people here are really pissed off about it. And they're like, dude, I pay rent. I don't want some dude. What if I'm going to have somebody over and he's on the couch? And then they're like, okay, we all pooled our resources to buy a dinner. Well, he's here. He should be allowed to vote on what we eat. And you're like, oh, come on. And then what happens is there's a meeting in the house and they say, who should be allowed to vote on what we eat? Mm-hmm. And then they're like, we should allow him to vote too. It includes him. And then he says, oh, I got some friends who are going to be hanging out. I think they should be allowed to decide. I mean, they're going to be here too. And then in a few months, all of a sudden, there's 15 people who don't live there outvoting the 10 who do. Mm-hmm. This is why we have restrictions. Not because we hate people or we oppose freedom or we're bigots. It's because we're literally like, hey, economy means household management, from the Greek oikonomia. So we're quite literally talking about managing the household in an effective way so that we are growing, not collapsing. Mm-hmm. But when you allow people who don't live to come in, they're going to be like, I vote to eat his portion, and then they take it and then they leave. Yeah. So people need to have ties to the community. So yes, you have to live there for a certain amount of time or be a citizen. A legal resident is what they're talking about is eroding the system. Mm-hmm. You can live here, but you're not a citizen. You want to become a citizen? You can go through the process. Then you are a full-fledged member of our community. We're going to allow you to stay. So if someone wants to crash in my house and sleep on the couch for a little bit, that's fine, but they're not going to be voting on what, cable provider we're going to be getting. If they want to move in, put a deposit down, pay rent, we'll talk about them being a full resident.
Or you could say people with green cards have to go through a different process other than citizenship that will allow them to vote in their local community.
Well, no, if you're not a citizen, I'm just saying if you're not a citizen, you should not be able to vote. And it's not as if granting these people who are not American citizens the right to vote in any election is going to be the end of it, and the left is going to go, okay, they have the adequate rights that we should be giving to non-citizens. They're just going to keep pushing to give them more voting power in other situations. They'll go, oh, see, we allow them to vote in local elections. Why not state elections? Why not national elections?
Right.
They do not stop.
Right. The new federal requirement for voting in a presidential election will be, are you eligible to vote in any jurisdiction in America?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
And
and then when the Republicans are like, we don't think this is good, the Democrats are going to go,
racist.
They're trying to stop people from voting.
They're suppressing voter rights. That's exactly what
it is.
Dude,
it is absolutely insane when you look at how far our system of election has been eroded and destroyed. Mm-hmm. And now we're at the point where there's universal mail-in voting, which the left will tell you makes it easier for everyone to vote. It makes it easier for first of all,
including people who shouldn't vote.
I'm not going to go there. I'm going to tell you this. When you live in a city with extreme population density, two activists can hit 1,000 doors, knocking on those doors, to advocate for their candidate, and a Republican would require 10 times the amount of distance and energy and money to cover because they're rural and they're spaced out. That alone should be a red flag as to why we need some kind of standard uniform process for voting that we actually assess. What I mean by that is it shouldn't be... Well, actually, I should rephrase that. It shouldn't be just this blanket, everyone gets to do X, because it doesn't affect every area the same way. Money is used differently in different jurisdictions. The reason why the Democrats are so dead set, one of the reasons universal mail-in voting is not because, and I know a lot of people on the right get mad about this, mass fraud or anything. That's not it. There's certainly issues. A guy got arrested, he had 300 ballots in the recall election in his car. He got charged with forgery. That stuff happens. But one activist for the Democrats can go into one apartment complex and secure 1,000 votes by advocacy, which is legal and normal. But a Republican in a Republican jurisdiction has to cover 10 square miles to get the same amount of people. Meaning, no matter, the Republicans have to spend 10 times the money or some exponentially greater number to cover that ground. That system does not work. How about first past the post voting doesn't work? We need ranked choice or a different system. I don't even know if ranked choice is perfect, but it's probably better than what we got.
Yeah, it is.
And then you have to go to a voting station, and there should be voting stations set up per population. So if it's in a big city and it's for every 30,000 people, you set up a one voting station. So that means in dense areas, you'll have 50, all within a couple blocks. And in rural areas, you'll have 15 within a couple blocks. Instead of just saying, we mail it to everybody.
Yep. I was thinking, do we do it with one person, one vote? And the ranked choice kind of automatically does that.
Yeah, one person, one vote makes no sense. It's not. I understand why the founders may have thought that made sense back in the day. It's a very simple system, but it ultimately results in people being like, I have no choice but to vote for this awful person. Mm-hmm. If you were able to actually be like, here are my values ranked out, ranked choice voting is better. It's not perfect. There are still circumstances in which people vote for the lesser of two evils. But I do think ranked choice makes more sense. I think Maine does it this way. I think I'm not sure. Maybe Nebraska. There's a couple places that are implementing ranked choice.
Is this a new development, or is this something that's been around for a while?
Ranked choice?
No. These non-U.S. citizens voting in localities.
So over the past couple of years, we've seen stories out of California and New York where they allow this, and they say it's just for like schools and things like this. It makes sense because they have kids in the schools, and you go, oh, okay, I guess that makes sense. And the next day they go, look, the kids are in the schools, they're using the streets, they're driving on buses, they should have a say in how taxes are being spent. Their kids they already vote on the school board. One by one, they will keep pushing until eventually it's like, how long have you been here, sir? Just got here 15 minutes ago from El Salvador. Here's your voter card, and thank you for choosing our president.
Yeah. No.
Well, part of this comes from the Supreme Court decision that says that anybody that shows up on the schoolhouse steps must be educated. Right? Did you know that at one point in time you had to be a citizen to get educated?
Interesting.
Yeah. Now, literally anybody who shows up at the door and it can show that they live here. Like, here's my power bill or whatever.
You mean at a public school, though,
public
right?
school.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Anybody,
taking tax money out of
any citizen, no matter of immigration status, legal, illegal, whatever, you show up, you get an education, you get fed school lunch program, participate in after school activities, all the things.
And back in the day, hundreds of years ago, there were no harshly controlled borders. You could walk on into New York and they'd be like, are you a citizen? No. And they'd be like, well, then you can't work here or you can't live here, things like that. But you could basically move about with little issue. And now I think people need to understand the exponential growth in population and what that really means. It changes things.
Yes.
However, the point was you could be there and they'd be like, look, we have citizens. The reason they're citizens is because we know who's a part of the community, who's pitching in, who's doing the work, who's serving, who's being conscripted, who's in the fire brigade. We can't have some strange person who's not a part of this coming in and changing what we do. So they have these rules. I think people need to understand, though, the scale of population growth. There were 2 million people in the colonies at the time of the Revolution. There's 320 million now. I mean, it is insane. We see these massive protests. If an Occupy Wall Street protest, when they had 20,000 people marching through the street, if that group of people were marching on a battlefield, they'd be like, what great country has such a mighty force? It's like, oh, that's just a bunch of college kids who are bored.
Yeah, right.
And, and they'll be like, oh, so it'll be easy for us, except for their numbers. Population growth has been absolutely insane. Yeah, people don't, what I was thinking about too with population growth stuff? How many people did you know back then, hundreds of years ago, when there were barely any people? You'd know like 30 people.
Well, and you also weren't connected to everyone through the internet too. So
you didn't know about the people in the next town over or on the other coast or around.
Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to see the full show, come back to this channel, youtube.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., where you can leave comments and super chat, and we actually will read your comments on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and if you want exclusive members-only content, segments you can't get anywhere else, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we even have full bonus episodes. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.